In this episode, I'm going to show you some real basic things in Photoshop related to resizing images and changing your canvas size. So once I have an image opened in Photoshop, if I want to change the image size, I can click here and go to image size and adjust it here, make it larger or smaller. If I wanted to enlarge the canvas, I would go to canvas size, and we'll just double the width approximately, and you have a way to kind of adjust the anchor. If you click one of these boxes, it will enlarge in the direction of the arrow. So if I click that dot right there, it's basically going to enlarge the right of this, hopefully. And let's click, and there we go. So I've enlarged the canvas size. Now the reason I wanted to do that is just to talk about manipulating photos and to show you how to make a copy of this. So with the move tool, the move tool is similar to the selection tool in Illustrator, where if you have a layer selected and it's visible, you can click and drag and move that around. If I hold the Alt button, just like in Illustrator, I can click and drag a copy. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to talk briefly about resizing images and some of the problems you'll have in Photoshop if you don't resize things properly. So on this layer, this is the photo layer that is showing up here. If I want to turn off the visibility, you can, just like in Illustrator, you click the little eyeball. So I'm going to move this around, but if I want to resize the image and or rotate it, I want to use some of the tools under Edit. So you have basically the Transform tool and the Free Transform tool. The Transform tool allows you to scale, rotate, skew, and so on. You can rotate it, you can flip it, but that's pretty much just a one-time thing. So if I scale it, all I can do is scale this up or down. Now the problem, if I do scale this down, if I go really small and I click enter, and then if I say, oh, I want to go back and I want to resize that, if I go up to edit, I could go to scale, or I can also use the free transform tool, which basically allows me to do more manipulations than just one. So I'm going to hold shift and bring this up and resize it close to its original size. And as you notice, the image is pretty much destroyed. It's very simplified. The pixels are huge. Anytime you're manipulating images in Photoshop, making them larger, making them smaller, yeah, you really have to keep in mind that Photoshop will rewrite the image. And anytime you resize images this way, you're doing what's called a destructive edit. It rewrites the image, changes it, and when you try and enlarge the image back up to its close to its original size, or even smaller, it's you're not going to have that retained image quality. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer because that's what you don't want to do. So once I'm finished with that free transformation, I'm going to hit enter to finalize that. And you can see, although it's not as bad as it was a moment ago, still nowhere near the quality of the original image. Edges are very pixelated. So let's go ahead and delete that layer. And instead of creating the resized image with the destructive edit, I'm going to do what's called using a smart object. So if you hover your mouse over the layer and you right click, you can convert the object to a smart object, or the photo to a smart object. And what this does, it allows you to make a copy or to resize it. Excuse me. We'll resize the copy. And let's go ahead and go with Edit, Free Transform. If you notice, the shortcut is Control T. So let's resize this, and I'll just kind of show you what happens. So with a smart object, you can go very tiny with it. I'll hit Enter to finalize that. I'm going to click Control T again to use the free transform tool. I'm going to hold Shift, and then I'll enlarge this. And as you can see, we'll hit Enter. The quality is exactly the same. It hasn't become pixelated like the previous copy that I made. So it's a good idea to convert your photos to a smart object if you plan to edit them in any way. The nice thing about a smart object, it can be saved. We'll kind of get into working with smart objects in the future. But if worse comes to worse, if I wanted to perform a certain edit on this, maybe I wanted to use the clone stamp tool, for example, it won't let me. It has to be defined with all, let's see. Let's try that. And then saying the smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. Okay, contents will no longer be available. Rasterize a smart object. So if you click OK, it'll bring it back to a pixel object, and then you could use certain tools such as this with the clone stamp tool here. So it will work. You might just have to, I'll press Control Z to back up. So if you get a message like that where you're trying to do something on a layer and it's with a smart object and it tells you to rasterize it, it's okay to rasterize that. Not a big deal. And if I wanted to make a copy of the layer beforehand, I can just click on it, hold Control J, and that'll make a copy as well. So anytime you're working in Photoshop, until you kind of get used to it, it's a good idea to make some additional copies of your layers. That way, if you accidentally do create a destructive edit, you can have that original image to go back to. But again, smart objects are a great way to resize an image and do other edits while working non-destructively.